There's Nitro 89, also May 26th, 1997. Eric Bischoff and Hollywood Hogan come out for a promo. The announcers are like, oh, here's Hogan now. Where was he last week when Sting was in the ring? Now let's be fair. Hulk was supposed to know Sting was going to pop up through the mat and ambush Eric Bischoff.
Sure.
There's enough to not like about Hulk. You don't have to make stuff up. So Hogan's entrance took so long, the NWO song ended and then started over. Finally, Hogan speaks. He says, Sting is in deep doo-doo, brah. That's a quote.
Brah.
He called Sting's fans the Sting-O-Nights.
Shocked that one didn't get over.
As he's speaking, I'm looking at him like, something's weird here. Then I realized he has shaved off the blonde mustache and just has the black stubble beard.
Yeah. He'd finally achieved full Hollywood Hogan status here.
I guess. He ran down Sting.
It was 1997, and he finally got rid of his mustache from the 70s.
Yes. He ran down Sting, he flexed, and that was it. This is 5 minutes that I swear felt like 20.
It was no good.
Super Calo and Juventud Guerrera and Hector Garza versus Ciclope and La Parca and Damien.
Now, before I get into this, just one question. Did Hogan say that Sting couldn't even keep up with Six-Pac?
I think he threw that in there, yeah.
What the hell did that have to do with anything?
Who knows?
Why do you have to throw a Six-Pac under the bus?
I don't know.
What a dick. All right, here's what we're going to do on this show here today. This ties into the first match here. It's Juvi, Hector Garza, and Super Calo. And Tony, ironically, decides he is going to tell us the proper pronunciation of Super Calo. Mm-hmm. It's not Super Calo, it's Super Calo. Against Ciclope, Damien, and La Parca. So first off, Larry just cannot wrap his head around these lucha rules. What do you mean they don't tag? How does another man get in the ring?
We're not in Mexico.
And Tenay's like, well, another man just gets in. Okay, cool. So, Super Calo does this dive early.
Oh my gosh.
He flips through the middle ropes, he wipes out a little kid, and he goes into the crowd. And the fucking crowd goes ape shit. Nobody cares one bit about the little kid that's been wiped out. Yes. All they care about is we want to make sure we can pat Super Calo on the back.
Not to mention, I think this was one of his first matches back after being hurt on a dive.
That's right. That brings me to what we're going to talk about here on this show today.
He's rubbing his hands together vigorously. That's not what you think it is.
Larry explains during this lucha match, because Larry hates lucha. Larry, of course, worked a very methodical style.
Sure.
Larry cannot handle everybody liking this lucha, so he's got to denigrate it at every turn. And Larry says, these men, they cannot have a long lifespan in the ring. Maybe 4 or 5 years tops. And I thought, all right, motherfucker, let's take a look at these 6 guys, and then we'll compare them to all the Americans that are also working the show. So for the record, as we get going here on the show today, with the exception of Hector Garza, who died of cancer, but was still working and wrestling almost until the end in 2012, every single one of these guys was still working as of a year ago.
Okay.
Juvi, Calo, Ciclope, Damien, and La Parca, all still working today. Remember that as we go through this show.
Okay. So I like, before the match even started, and Tony Schiavone lets us know this is going to be a Jim Dandy.
Yeah.
Maybe he was right. I don't know. Ciclope, for those of you
harkens back to that NWA in 86.
I guess so.
A Jim Dandy.
I don't know why Halloween couldn't be Halloween. He had to be Ciclope. One of the
Halloween's too ridiculous. He's a one-eyed man now.
He was the wackiest of the wacky lucha gimmicks here. They're having this great and insane match. My pet peeve in this match and on the show, I think I counted one guy on the entire show who was not wearing black gear. And that was Psychosis, who was wearing dark blue. So there's bodies flying all over the place. It's very, very cool. But since they're not regular teams and they're all dressed the same, I lost track of who was supposed to be on whose team. But I didn't care that much because the action was awesome enough it didn't matter. La Parca, especially great. So there's a point late in the match where guys start flying over and off the top rope on other guys on the floor. And sometimes they get caught, and sometimes they just don't.
Yeah.
They just hit the floor over and over and over again. All I can think was, this is where Drowning Pool got the idea for that song. There's the bodies hitting the floor. Right?
Hey.
This moment on Nitro.
You would think that this would shorten these men's careers.
You would think. Finally, Cyclope tries to dive in the ring. Hector catches him in a powerbomb and finishes him off with a standing moonsault. And as I wrote here, this was a tremendously entertaining clusterfuck.
Didn't Hector Garza work Raw less than 6 weeks ago?
Very recently. Clearly they didn't sign him.
Yeah. Found that funny.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a chart here. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in this match that are still working, and one is no longer working.
Yes.
Although it's not really fair because he's deceased. So let's just keep that in mind.
Let's add a non-wrestling injury.
Yes. So we're doing luchas, luchadors, and Americans.
All right.
Fair.
By the time, okay, so not just this match, all luchadors. There was a lot of them.
Yeah, on
Okay.
this show.
Yeah.
Luchadors versus, I'll just put non-luchadors so we can count like, how do we want to classify like Muda?
I don't know.
All right, well, I'm just going to do non-lucha.
All right.
Lucha versus non-lucha.
All right. Psychosis versus Alex Wright. Alex Wright was wearing neon green. He was the only guy who was not wearing a dark color on the show.
Doing a lewd dance most of the time.
He stalled. He was a coward. He did his lewd dance. And they're doing this match, and it's just a nothing match. And he goes outside. He runs away from Psychosis, first of all. And then he's on the floor, sort of in the aisle, doing his wacky dance. Meanwhile, Psychosis is climbing the ropes behind him. And the idea is Psychosis is going to do like a moonsault, corkscrew, somersault dive. It's very complicated and elaborate. And he goes flying through the air, and he fucking misses.
Yeah.
This is not Alex's fault in any way.
Well, kinda. Alex like sort of put his arm out, but that was about it.
Well, he had bad reflexes.
He could have
Yes.
stepped one tiny step to the right and made somewhat of a fair catch.
So poor Psychosis goes bounce hard off the arena floor and the guardrail. And Alex Wright sells for this, and Psychosis, not to say he's unaffected, but he is able to throw Alex into the ring, and that's not enough. He has to do a top rope leg drop as well.
You can see him grimacing through his mask.
Yeah. He hits this move and pinned him. So Psychosis won.
You know what? Psychosis still wrestling today.
Yes.
Alex Wright has been retired for years.
Yes.
So I'm marking that down on my chart.
Oh, God, this segment. Gene Okerlund interviews Sonny Ono about a surprise for Masahiro Chono.
This was amazing.
He's pressuring him, but Ono will not reveal his secret.
God, Gene and Sonny Ono should have their own show on the WWE Network. Like, can you imagine their ride along?
So Gene is pressuring him. Ono says, no, you will have to wait like all the other American fans. Meanwhile, Psychosis has just won as he crosses by. Sonny says, hey, let's do a deal later. And I forget what Psychosis said, but it was clearly the only 3 English words he knew. He shook his hand and said, yes, okay, and went to the back. And then Sonny keeps running down Masahiro Chono until out comes Medusa.
Oh, yeah.
Same segment.
Yeah. She says, there's controversy concerning the women's title. There is.
Well, I didn't know what she was talking about, but
She then begins to stumble all over her lines, messing up everything she says. Somewhere in here, she did say that she would do anything for a title match. And Sonny Ono's eyes, behind his sunglasses, get really big, and he says, anything?
And Gene, with his eyes, said the same thing. Anything?
Yes, and Medusa hemmed and hawed. But
they
Sonny
were strongly teasing that anything
meant favors.
ha ha ha.
So, instead, Sonny says, the deal is done. Here are the steps. You can have a title shot at the Great American Bash. But if you lose, you must retire. And there's a pause. She doesn't say anything. And so Sonny holds up his watch and says, you have 15 seconds to answer. May never get another shot. And Medusa's taking her head and looking at the ground. And the only time in this entire segment the champion's name was mentioned, Gene says, this could be your only chance at Akira Huto, which is not her name.
It has an owl gimmick.
So Medusa very sheepishly accepts. And Gene says, well, that's it. If she loses, she could be walking the streets looking for a job.
That's not what he said. He said, she may be walking the streets. Looking for a job.
Yes.
It was a very well-placed and lewd pause.
And he says this, by the way, about a woman who was standing next to him wearing a sequined thong bikini over her spandex bike shorts.
Yeah. So after he calls her a hooker, Sonny Ono then shoots back, you'll be back nursing.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I was so caught up in
The
that.
fuck are you talking
I don't
about?
know.
Nursing?
Well, her breasts are gigantic.
Not milk.
I understand that, Vince.
So, at the time, watching this, I wrote, boy, that was a terrible segment. I go back over. I apologize. That segment was bizarre, but it certainly was not terrible.
All right, now, even though she didn't work, I'm adding Medusa to the American Wrestlers column, and she is, in fact, retired.
She had a better job.
She drives a truck now. Mm-hmm. It's probably physically hard on her. What? No, I mean the trucks. They bounce up and down.
We know, Greg. We know what you mean. Not everything. The announcers are talking about Glacier and Zbyszko, and of course, Larry has to make everything about himself.
Yeah.
Talks about his own studies of karate under Master Shimabuku.
Shimabuku.
Got to name drop him.
And then he had some sort of piece of wisdom that I believe culminated with the word parakeet. Am I wrong?
Don't fly like an eagle with the wings of a parakeet or something.
Yeah.
Something he clearly got off a fortune cookie.
Not even that. I mean, they'd never use the word parakeet.
I don't know.
It's like, you can't soar like an eagle with the wings of a parakeet. That was his wisdom. And he says it in such a serious manner. Mm-hmm. And I was just looking at Mike Tenay the whole time, hoping he'd crack.
No way.
But he didn't.
Are you kidding? Mike Tenay never cracked. Speaking of, Shivani turns to Tenay and says, I understand you have done some investigative work into Ernest Miller. Now, I realize it was 1987. There was no Google. But was that hard to find out the guy did karate?
Apparently.
So they show clips of him doing full contact karate, knocking guys out. The amazing thing about this, they're doing karate in a 6-sided ring.
Oh, hey.
TNA is just a ripoff of ISKA.
Ernest Miller, by the way, retired.
Wrath versus Mark Starr.
Wrath is retired. Vandenberg is retired. Mortis, unfortunately, is deceased. And Mark Starr is retired.
All right.
Just for the record.
So, the good thing about Wrath, of course, was that he was a great big guy who had a tremendous look. He looked really big and scary.
We're stretching here. I mean, he did, but...
We're not stretching at all. He looked really big and scary.
That's the extent of...
He goes out there, and I don't think he wrestled like this before this gimmick or after. It looked like he said, you're in a feud with a karate guy. You must do karate. So he watched Enter the Dragon one time and went out in the ring and tried to imitate it. It was terrible. There was a lot of kicks, a lot of interference, and Wrath won with a body press. That can't be right. He had a bicycle kick and a Uranagi in one.
Yeah.
It's called the death penalty.
Boring, I wrote. Mm-hmm. And I stand by that.
Mm-hmm. Viano 4 versus Conan.
Conan is retired.
It's a good thing.
Viano 4 is still working.
How about Hugh Morris?
Hugh Morris is retired.
He appeared here in an inset promo running down Conan. And this match was clunky. Morris tried to hit the ring. Security geeks in suits held him back. This distracted Conan. It distracted him so badly that after watching Hugh Morris get dragged up the aisle, he turned around, hit what Paige calls the Rampage, and then the Tequila Sunrise and won. Great! Not every distraction has to have a guy get loosed via schoolboy. So Conan wins the squash. Okerlund goes to interview him. Says Kevin Sullivan is on self-imposed sabbatical.
Is that what happened?
He got fired, right?
He was removed from power, and that was the end of him.
By the way, you mentioned that. Who was put in place? Who was booking this right now?
Terry Taylor.
Okay.
And why did they bring up Sullivan's name if he was fired?
I don't know. Maybe they thought he'd come back.
So
Maybe they didn't want to have a loose end of a storyline, God forbid.
So Conan shouts something in Spanish, and this was 97. We've been watching Raging Bull on Saturday night shows 10 years before this, say something in Spanish every single week.
And the same thing happens on Raw in
And-
2016.
Yeah. In 1997, Gene Okerlund says, "This is America. Speak English." And Conan has the best response when he looks at him and says, "Shut up, white boy. It's not for you."
Wow.
Got him there. He says he has no respect for Sullivan, who has been dealing with Chris Benoit for a year now and still hasn't finished the job. He's got Jacqueline doing his dirty work for him. He warns Morris, the Pillsbury fat boy, not to interrupt his matches again, or Conan would kill him.
Conan was a good promo.
Oh, yes. Ono comes out to introduce a surprise. It is, in fact, the Great Muta.
I'm not going to count these two in the deal I'm doing here. I just
are-
want only the American
they
wrestlers
are-
versus the luchadors.
They are none of the above.
They are none of the above.
Yes. So Muta comes out, and Tanei is explaining these men have been feuding for years in Japan, but lately Chono's been trying to recruit him to join the NWO.
Oh, man.
Chono comes out carrying an NWO t-shirt, and no one mentioned this, but he also had a sword. That seemed far more newsworthy to me.
You know what's newsworthy to me? I was unaware of this, but Masahiro Chono was born in Seattle.
Really?
Yeah.
Not aware.
I wasn't either. I was blown away by that.
So, the point of this match was to be boring. They succeeded. They did nothing for a long time. Chono would stall and chase Ono around the ring. They get in the ring and do nothing. Repeat this for a while. Finally, the fans are starting to boo. The announcers are getting antsy. Ono is begging Muta to attack. So finally, Muta grabs one headlock and just stands there. And he's standing there and standing there. And Ono jumps up on the apron and screams, "What are you doing?" He gets in the ring. At this point, Muta lets Chono go. They stare Ono down. And Ono starts to realize his plan has gone horribly awry. But before he can act, Muta spits red mist in his face. He takes the NWO shirt from Chono. He takes a picture with Ono's camera of Ono. I thought that was awesome. And that was that. And he and Chono left together. So it was long and boring, but at least it eventually went somewhere.
It was cool, I guess, but it took absolutely forever. It was like they did 3 weeks of 1-hour shows and then couldn't figure out how to fill up 2 hours anymore.
Barbarian versus Jim Powers. Tony Schiavone let us know.
Jim Powers, by the way, retired. And the very first American on this entire show
No way.
who is still wrestling today is the fucking Barbarian.
That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, he's still
He was a
around.
veteran here.
He's going strong. Dude, you remember we were watching the Barbarian in the 86 shows?
Yes.
The ball bearing.
Ball bearing.
He's like almost 60, still working today.
Tony Schiavone said that Dallas Page, Randy Savage 2 will be the most anticipated match of all time.
Of all time. Wow. That might be stretching it.
I believe he was wrong.
I think DDP would laugh about that.
Yes. So, this was a fun squash. It was two great big men chopping the piss out of each other. And Barbarian won with a power slam and big boot.
It was not just a big boot, it was a loaded boot.
I see.
But none of the announcers noticed him loading the boot.
Neither did I.
I noticed because I've been hit with a goddamn loaded boot.
Grappler.
I know when a man stomps his foot on the mat,
That's a sign.
trouble's coming.
Sean loaded his boot all those years?
Well, it's different. It's a different kind of loading.
I see.
Different stomp.
Yeah, different stomp.
You stomp with the
point
toes
of-
down.
Yeah, you kind of,
So it holds the weight.
you gotta load the toe.
Yeah, it's you're taking the metal plate that's in the heel and pushing it toward the front.
Right.
I see.
And then the grappler hit me
Damage your
with
opponent's face.
he hit me with the flat of his boot in my stomach.
Oh.
I took a flat back bump and was pinned.
Well, abdomen injuries can also be severe.
You know they can, but why I went backwards after being hit in the stomach,
Huh.
aside from the fact that it's the finish, I don't know. It didn't make any sense.
So, Gene is about to interview Barbarian and Jimmy Hart when Benoit appears. He demands to know from Jimmy Hart, where is Kevin Sullivan?
I hate to do this, but
Oh, jeez.
Well,
Woman and Benoit do in fact fall into that category.
they are not wrestling anymore.
And I can tell you that I'm pretty sure that Woman would not be active today. And based on the WWE wellness policy and the state of Benoit physically in 2007, I am skeptical that he would be wrestling today either.
That's fair. So, Jimmy explains that to go...
Shower.
Yeah. To, derailed.
Sorry.
To get to Kevin Sullivan, it's not your fault. Jimmy Hart has to go. It's not your fault either, Brian. To get to Kevin Sullivan, Benoit will have to go through Barbarian.
The ball bearing.
So Benoit says, cool. And he hits the ring, removes his vest. He's ready to go. Jimmy says, no. You must wait until next week.
I can't wait.
How come with all these guys that they've got in here now and all that money they're throwing around and J.J. Dillon's back, why was the number one Paul Jones not brought back after all those years?
That's a dang good question. What was he doing in 97?
Fuck. Not a lot, I'm sure.
Giant versus Johnny Swinger, Rick Fuller, and Jerry Flynn.
Okay.
I don't know how this is possible. Giant has been a main eventer in this company for a year and a half. Still didn't have his own music.
Yeah.
He comes out to silence.
So the Giant is not retired.
Rick Fuller is actually wrestling. Thank you, Bob.
Yep. Rick Fuller is wrestling.
Not to see.
Johnny Swinger is still wrestling.
Wow.
But Jerry Flynn is retired. So that vastly skewed my table right here. Just this one match.
These large men.
Yeah, these
Giant and Fuller, the biggest guys in the show. So, although Luger's retired.
a Luger, I got to throw the Luger into the retired category here.
So, this had the best psychology of any 1-on-3 handicap match I ever saw. Because first, the small guy started with the Giant. Mm-hmm. That didn't work, so he tagged out to Flynn, the medium-sized guy. That didn't work, so he tagged out to Fuller, the biggest guy they had.
This is the best psychology.
In a 1-on-3 handicap match. I was expecting Giant to come out and hit all these men with moves.
It's a state of psychology today. That this is blowing Vinny's mind.
Find me a
First,
1-on-3
the small
handicap
guy
match.
tried.
Why would you send the little guy in first?
Then the medium bear.
You sacrificial
ate the
lamb.
porridge. And then the big one.
I say again, find me another 1-on-3 handicap match that had better psychology than this. I'll wait.
I don't know.
Okay. So Fuller gets in the ring, and he is like 6'6". He's a very big man, but it doesn't work, and Giant is killing him. They hit the ring to triple team him, which leads to a roar spot, the greatest spot in all of wrestling. Giant double suplexes Flynn and Fuller, who are legit at least 500 pounds. And he hit 3 choke slams in a row, and he won. People are jumping up and down. That was a great squash match.
Let's talk about Luger's outfit, Craig. Go ahead. Don't even tell me you didn't notice. Even I noticed, and I never notice what people are wearing. It was like a pinstripe vest with no sleeves, and he was wearing nothing underneath it. It looked
opposed to all those vests
so
that have sleeves.
Ridiculous.
Those are called suit coats.
Fair enough.
God, it was bad.
So Oakland goes to interview them. It turns out Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman have signed an open contract. Luger says that I have been watching Dennis Rodman in these playoffs very carefully. I have not forgotten the time he slapped me and spray painted me, and his payback's coming. And Giant runs down Hogan for a while, and he doesn't really say anything terribly inventive. It's just a great delivery. Great promo by both men. Winner of a segment. Lee Marshall did the road report. He told a joke about weasels at an air show in Ohio. Six comes out for a promo. He repeated his claim that the Slamboree finish was invalid because Nick Patrick had not been reinstated until the next night. So he was an illegal official the whole time. He called Ric Flair a fluff boy, which I didn't know you could say on TV. He showed the Outsiders killing Flair last week, and then he brought the Outsiders out.
Okay, now for the record, Hall is retired. Nash is retired.
Six still works.
Flair is retired. And the one that worked the highest risk style of all,
Yes.
Six, is still wrestling.
Yeah. And they called Flair a drag queen and ran him down, and Nash made a joke about Piper's boring movies, and Hall cackled. I will say, it was a terrible joke, but when a heel makes a terrible joke and his partner laughs, that's entertaining.
This is the first time the Wolf Pack has been referenced on television?
As far as I know.
I believe it is.
The Six brought them out and said, here we are, the Wolfpack, or something like that. So the gimmick is they challenged Flair and Piper to a title match because Hall and Nash are the tag team champions, if you'd forgotten, like I had. And he threatened to retire Piper just like Piper had promised to do to his son.
In a slobber knocker.
We did.
And for the record, Jarrett is still wrestling, but Mongo, Booker, and Stevie
All retired.
All retired. Yes. Although Stevie did wrestle 3 matches last year for some promotion. I think he was helping, but I'm not counting that.
Is that maybe Booker T's promotion?
No, it was a different one. I don't know what Wildcat something or other.
Yeah. I think it's out of Ohio.
Kevin Green joined the announce desk. You can put him in retired as well. That's cheating.
You're right.
So they're doing this match, and just nothing happens for a while. And they start working over Mongo. There's chin locks aplenty. Felt like about 20 minutes until Jarrett got the hot tag.
I wrote 4 fucking ever. Is that inaccurate?
No. Now, the good news is, once the hot tag was made, this was really good because it was Jeff Jarrett in Tennessee. And so he was very, very over, and he worked his ass off making this comeback. There's a lot of wrestlers I've seen who are like, they're better athletes than Jeff Jarrett. He can run faster, jump higher, all that stuff. But their drop kicks pale in comparison. His drop kick was so awesome.
This match was notable because we had a very early moment that later morphed into It's the Wall by Hulk Hogan. Mongo's in the ring.
I see.
The announcers are what?
They're by the entranceway.
Half a mile away, it seems.
50 yards away.
Fucking Mongo in the middle of this comeback notices Kevin Green doing commentary by the announcers who are deep in the crowd.
Yes.
And he's like, I must stop wrestling.
Yes.
And go take out this man.
So he goes to fight Kevin Green. Say what you will about these two, but these men were throwing meat at each other with these forearms. They were clubbing. So Jarrett's now alone in the ring. He is overwhelmed, and very quickly he gets pinned with an elevated sidekick. Buried in his hometown.
Mongo playing babyface in peril, as I stated earlier, is something to behold.
It is amazing.
When this man takes a flat back bump, I can't even call it that. He just falls like a tree.
Yes.
He's on his feet, and then he's not.
Remember when Brian said that Steve Austin was heavy-footed?
Right.
Yeah. Like both of his boots were loaded.
Yeah.
And stuck to the mat.
Yeah.
But Austin, he'd run and the ring would shake.
Yeah.
Mongo makes the ring shake just lying there. Everything he does is just thunderous and ponderous. Show ended the way it began, with Hogan and Bischoff coming out for another promo.
Okay, so Hogan's retired. Bischoff is retired. Sting is retired. Jeff Farmer is retired. And of all people, Bagwell.
I don't think that was Jeff Farmer, by the way.
It was, and he was in Japan. But the fake Sting was Bagwell. And he, in fact, is not retired.
Yes.
And he was the one who broke his neck in the mid-90s.
Isn't he doing films?
That as well.
I see.
Various forms of entertainment being done by Mr. Bagwell. So Hogan and Bischoff come out with this promo. A rant about Sting is not there. He's not going to come through the mat again. And then Sting, in fact, did come out through the mat again. I'm skipping a point here. Hogan said, I will put my title on the line if Sting arrives. So Sting begins to climb up through the mat, only Bischoff and Hogan see him coming, and they're prepared, and of course it's not Sting. It's Bagwell, which I didn't know until now, but he couldn't even be bothered to put on makeup. He gave him a wig and a mask. So he comes out, and they make him get on his knees, and he obeys, and they say, admit that you are not half the man Hogan is, and he nods his head. And this is going on for a while, and finally Sting very quickly descends from the ceiling, rappels down. He immediately, he comes down behind the heels, and he grabs Eric Bischoff by the hair on the back of his head, and you have to watch Bischoff's reaction. It's total surrender, but in a sense of, oh no! It's great comedy. And he knows what's coming, and in fact, Sting DDTs him. And Hogan sees this, he's scared, he bails, so Sting kills the fake Sting as well. The rest of the NWO comes out, they surround the ring, and the camera is zoomed in on Hogan for a while, so we can't see Sting getting rehooked into his harness. And at last, the show ends, and they go to kill Sting, but he zooms back up into the rafters, and that was that.
You know, if you read about what happened with Owen Hart and the clamp and how it broke and the whole 9 yards that led to his demise, the idea that they had Sting clamp himself in by himself with what I am sure was a pretty fucking simple clamp.
Well, we don't know that.
He just
camera
hooked it on.
him,
See, I would not be surprised.
No, there were no other guys in the ring.
All right.
He always hooked himself up.
Jeez.
And he goes flying away like that?
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling. And they did it every week.
Yeah.
Hey, Sting, you just got to clamp this thing right here. We'll lift you up. Crazy.
Yesterday, by the way, the anniversary of Owen Hart's death.
That's right.
Oof.
So that was Nitro.
Well, let's get everyone out of their sad mood and let's talk about our stats here as a mathematician. So Larry opened the show talking about these goddamn luchadors and how they're going to have short careers and they wrestle too dangerous a style. Now, to be fair, this was the 90s in America, and there was a lot of things that went into all of the retirements and deaths of everybody who was on the show here. But of the luchadors on this show, 78% of them are still working today, and of the Americans, only 30% of them are working today. 70% of the Americans on this show working their easy American style are retired, and these luchadors, including the guy that flew off the post and crashed and burned because Alex Wright didn't catch him, still working today.
Must be something in the water there in Mexico that you're not supposed to drink.
Exactly. Not supposed to drink. What are you looking at, Vinny?
Owen Hart's Wikipedia page.
Oh, what did you learn?
Nothing. It's all stuff I'm painfully aware of, but yeah. Lucha's safe.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Don't know if I'd go that far. You know what's safe is not doing a lot of steroids, growth hormones, and Percocet, and Somas.
Let me write that down.
Write that down.
Now you tell me.
Yeah. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up. We will be back on Thursday with NXT and Lucha Underground.
By the way, Brian, people are blowing up my Twitter. When are we going to do this stupid contest?
Dude, someone else tweeted me about that. And first off, I don't remember the contest, number one. And number two, I don't know if we got any entries.
Oh.
Well, there you go.
What was the contest? It was like, take something out of context. I may have gotten one.
Yes, take things out of it's basically
plug it again and we'll do it next. Everyone's got 1 week.
Contest was taken out of context, so just something we said in passing that can be totally isolated and taken out of context as to what we were referring to.
Is that what I said? A taken out of context contest?
I have no idea what's going on.
Anyway, 30 seconds.
And as many clips as you can get in that 30 seconds.
30 seconds, MP3, and send it to Brian at WrestlingObserver.com.
And you got a cool prize, as I remember.
I totally forgot what it was.
The hat from the Lucha.
Oh, yeah. I got a cool prize, everybody.
You know what the guy?
I hope it's here somewhere.
Oh,
yeah. No, I remember now. All right, yeah, I got a cool prize. You'll want to win it.
Yeah, it's cool.
It is actually really cool. It's even more cool the last few months. So that's the contest. Out of context contest, MP3, 30 seconds or less, Brian at WrestlingObserver.com. Put Craig contest in the subject line. You have 1 week. I think the problem is when we gave everyone 3 weeks, they all waited till the last minute. So
it was
from now
before
on,
Mania.
You got 1 week to get your entry in, and we'll give away the prize next week. All right, everybody, that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.